Hi, I'm Jose Anunciato, and you're watching the WebDev channel. All right, so we're now rendering a hard-coded list of rows, of course rows, but we want this to be dynamic, and we want to fetch this from the server, right? First of all, let's see if we actually have a server to get this data from. Let's see. I believe I had started with this on STS. Do I have a server running? Let me see. Let's see if we can hit something here. Localhost 8080 API slash course. All right. So we do have some courses, right? So the 5610, which I already had added it, as I had mentioned earlier. We have a title and ID. Those are the only things we really care about now. Just a title and an ID. And I have, I believe, 3 courses. We have CS 5610, 5200, and 4550. All right, so we want to be able to grab this from the server. And the implementation of the server is what we saw earlier. All right, so I just got ahead a little bit, but you can follow along in the slides. All right, so let's try and hit this from a React client. So what we're going to do is we're going to implement a design pattern called the Singleton design pattern, right? A Singleton design pattern says that there are some objects that are meant to only exist once throughout the framework, right? That it makes no sense to have more than one instance of these hanging around, right? So here's one way of implementing the Singleton pattern using JavaScript. This is just plain old JavaScript. Of declaring a local symbol that we can remember because it's inside the module, and that and we construct it. We build it once when we ask for an instance. So ideally, what happens is that here is that we would ask for an instance not by using the constructor, right? Instead, we would use it by calling the .getInstance function. And the instance function would be responsible to actually instantiating the instance of this singleton, right? And then returning it to you as the single instance. Any attempt at trying to use the constructor should be discouraged, right? For instance here, notice that we generate an instance, any instance of any object, but we remember it inside of this module. If the constructor is called, it checks to see, right, that if this already exists, it's going to throw an exception saying no, this has already been instantiated, though you cannot use the constructor. So this discourages folks from using the constructor. It doesn't actually construct anything, right? It throws an exception if you try to use the constructor. And it's meant to only be generated from this instance, and it's only constructed only once. Right? Anyone else that calls this get instance would get exactly the same instance next time. Notice that it checks to see if it's already there. If it's not already there, it does instantiate it and it stores it. But next time around, this will be false. It'll just return whatever it had instantiated previously. All right? It's kind of a little bit of a hack, but it's fairly standard implementation. So yeah, so in Java you would do it in a different way. So different languages have different ways to implement the Singleton design pattern, right? But anyway, so this is meant to be called as a static, meaning course servers dot get instance, right? This is not meant to be called new course service, right? So it's always course servers dot get instance, and this would allow us to call this instance, this one single instance, from anywhere, any component that we want, right? We just have to import it and say course service dot get instance. Right? We can call it from the course row. We can call it from the course list. We can call it from the course editor. Right? There might be multiple components that want to talk to the service. Right? So instead of creating multiple instances of the service, there's only one of these hanging around. Anyway, let's declare a service. I don't believe we have any service. I believe this is our very first service. Let's see. We haven't really used this design pattern. Well, actually, we have in jQuery, right? We were using just plain. Over there, we were not implementing the Singleton pattern, right? We were always instantiating brand new, right? So we're introducing here this brand new design pattern. All right, so let's copy this and into a file, in course service file, inside here in the source. Oops, copy. There we go. And in here we're going to copy and paste the course service. All right. All right. So we have the Singleton implementation of course service. All right, so this is not really what we care about, right? It just happens to be a very common design pattern, right, in software engineering. What we really want to do here is that the course server is going to be the single point from where we're going to talk to the database, right? Just like we did when we did it with jQuery, right? We put all the data access, we put it all under, I think it was called user service, wasn't it? User service client something or other, wasn't it? All right, so same thing here. We want to put here all data access to the server. We want to put it in here. You want to talk to the server? You go through me. This is the only point of maintenance, as opposed to instead of putting what you don't want to end up with is that doing random fetches to the server anywhere you want. Okay, that would create a nightmare to maintain, right? Because you'd be spread out over multiple components. You have data access everywhere, right? And to debug that is just so hard, right? Because you would have promises everywhere. Where do you put your breakpoints? Right? So a good place to put it is one single place. You have one single place of maintenance, right? You want to know how you want to debug this. There's one place to go, and that's it, right? As opposed to putting data access everywhere in your code. Right? So this is a very common design pattern, right? Especially if you're working on large projects and with multiple folks in a team. It's better to apply these best practices. Okay, so the first service that we're going to implement is find all courses, right? That's what we want to go fetch. We'll need a constant that points to where the URL is, right? In this case, it's living in localhost, right? So let's put that as a constant, and we'll go with not HTTPS. This will be just localhost. Actually, probably could just be relative, just API. So this will work in both places. It will work locally and will work remotely. Right? So it'll be actually no, it won't work because in the jQuery implementation, jQuery was being hosted by the same server that had the data. Yes, in that case. The jQuery was talking to the same server where it was downloading, right? Something like this. The implementation was something like, here's your server, right? Here's your server, and here's your browser, and the browser asks for index. Right, here's index. Index was downloaded, copied over to the browser, but the index referenced jQuery, referenced your services, your everything, right? It references. It went back to the same server that it had been downloaded from. Yes? It asked for all your JavaScript. All your JavaScript was downloaded. So it was copied over. All your JavaScript was downloaded. Your JavaScript executed, right? Your $ init or whatever, right? And what it did is it generated several AJAX calls back to the server that the JavaScript had been downloaded from. Yes? Right? And the browser has no problem when a JavaScript file, wants to make a network connection to the original server that it was downloaded from. Okay? No problems there. Okay? It's going back to the same domain. It's considered to be a safe network connection. What we're going to be doing, right, is that we're going to keep the server. It's going to hold the data, still the same server we worked on last week. But instead, our React application is going to be hosted in a different server, right? In a Node.js server. Okay? So this is a Java server, and that's a Node.js server. So this code here, right? This client code is over here. So instead of going index here, we're going to go index there. Right? This is going to download index. The index is going to come back and download all the JavaScript. Yes? Well, Java is going to be downloading. Yes? And the first thing that the JavaScript is going to do is says, ooh, I need courses. I need a list of courses. But where? It's not over there, right? It's the same Java server that has the database and has everything, right? It's going to go out this way. And the browser is going to complain. You're going to say, no, 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 no. That's a security risk, right? If the JavaScript was downloaded from one domain, it cannot then go out into another domain. All right? It's considered to be cross-site scripting. Right? So we're going to have to configure our server to say it's okay. Right? I'm okay with receiving queries from folks in a different domain. Right? It used to be considered, a big deal, right? But now today it's very, very common actually. Right? Most large corporations, right? They have, they're looking, they have all this data that have been accumulating for many decades, right? And they're looking to monetize that data somehow, right? And they're looking to, make it available, and folks, integrate with me. I have all this data that's been sitting there that I've accumulated, right? And integrate with me. We can partner, and I can sell you this data. It's good data. So they're looking for you to come in and hit that server and get that data, right? So they configure their servers like we're going to do too. We're going to say that we can configure the server to receive calls only from. We can whitelist certain domains and say only from certain domains I'm okay with requests, or I can open it up to everybody. Anybody can call me, right, and receive data, ask me for information. Okay, and I believe that's exactly what we did here in the service. Okay, notice that it's been configured, this hash at cross origin. See that? Cross origin. And you can list there all your origins. And the star means anybody. Right? So what the browser does is that it does two calls first. Right? First goes what is called a pre-flight request. It goes to the server saying, hey server, there's iffy JavaScript that I want to talk to you. And it's from some other domain. Is it okay? And the server says, yeah, sure, it's fine. Then the browser lets the request go through. Okay. So each call is actually has two calls. The first one is a pre-flight, and it asks the server, hey server, they want to do a get. Are you receiving gets from this domain? And it says, yeah, I can receive get, post, and put. Right, and the server responds with what it's available. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, that's one other configuration that we'll need. Yeah, so this URL actually does need to point to where we're actually going to. So let's copy this. We'll need this. So we'll paste it here. And we're going to localhost. Right now we're going to our machine, local machine. So localhost, and it's 8080. All right. Notice that our React is running on 3000, right? On localhost 3000. So even locally on our machine, the browser considers it to be two different domains, right? Because the domain includes also the port number. All right. Excellent. So let's see. What are we going to do here? We need to implement the find all courses. So I'm going to copy that, and I'll just implement it right here. Implemented down below right here. Find all courses. What's it going to do is just going to be a fetch using the course API URL, and it's going to parse it and it's going to send it back. All right. All right. Excellent. So now the component needs to use this service. So let's keep going. From the course list component, what we're going to do is that in the constructor, we're going to get that instance, right? Fetch that instance, and we're going to store it in a local instance variable in the instance of the component. So we're gonna load that. Let's go back to the course list, and in the constructor right after the super, we're going to get the course list. We'll need to load that. We're going to need to import it. So import course service from, and I believe we need to go up one, and then into services, and then course service. There we go. Okay. All right. So we get the instance. Once we have the instance, we can use one of the life cycle functions. Is when the React framework is ready to render you on the screen, right? It calls you. It's saying, "Hey, you're ready to be mounted. We're ready to be rendered." Any words? Any last words before you're rendered? Right? Here, there's this component did mount. Right? What we're going to do in that component did mount is we're going to use a course list. We're going to use a course list. Let's see. Am I missing something? Curly bracket am I missing? What don't you like? Parentheses? I think that's it. Oh, I missed a curly bracket and parentheses down there. There we go. Right, so what we're going to do here is that we're going to go fetch the courses, and then we're going to bind it to the component's state, right? And the state is going to be a variable called courses, and the value will be whatever came back from the server. Yes, all right. And we can also just to make sure that we did get it indeed, we can do a console log courses to see that we actually got it, and we can inspect and see what we're getting. And put that on the right. We can look at the console. We can refresh, and there we go. There's our 3 courses. Right? See that? And we're printing out to the console. So that's now available in the state of the component. If it's available in the state of the component, we can now iterate over it. Right? We can iterate and generate a dynamic list of courses. So let's do that next. We can generate. We can create a local function. We can create a local function here called maybe a better name might be render course rows, and it returns. Here's returning a single course row, or even a return a course row like that, right? And in here, instead of having all these hard-coded elements, right, we can call that function like we did yesterday. We can say render course rows, right? And let's see if that worked. Yeah, right now it's only rendering 1. Okay, it's only rendering 1. But here in this function, we can iterate. We can do iterate over all the state rows, right? Map over them, right? Concatenate all of these, right? And then pass them back and return them. Right? We can say let courses equal this dot courses state dot courses dot map, right? And so this will be function, and this will be course, and this is just going to return the course row, and then we can just return the courses. Oops. Can I? What is it? What did I do? Let courses map blah 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 blah. This dot state courses of null. Render courses. What am I missing? This courses. This say map. Return function course. Return rows. Course row. What am I missing? This dot state courses. Did I not call it courses? Render. Where is the constructor component mount? That's a courses. Yeah, courses. Yes. Courses. This dot state courses. Am I spelling it right? So before I do that, let me see if I have the data here. Right. So let's do console log this dot state. Let's see what's in the state. There doesn't seem to be anything in the state. This dot say, why is it not listing? This dot state. Super course. Courses. This dot state. Let me see, make sure that I am here. Render course rows. Am I even making it there? Render course rows, Coruse rows. Oh, okay, wait, it's there. Oh, interesting. It's being called twice. Why is it being called twice? The first time around is null, but the second time around is not null. So I have some kind of race condition. And it's courses, right? Courses, yep. No, so it's 25. And 25, when it prints the state, is null. Interesting. Okay, so for now I'm just going to check to see if it's null. So if this dot state, then I will do this. Right? Oops. Let courses equal null. Right? But if I do have state, then courses is equal to that. And this returns courses. Let's see if, okay, there we go. So we have 3 courses, right? And each one of the courses that's coming back from the server. We could pass along the course object over to the course row for rendering, right? So we can render the title, we can render those kinds of things, right? So for instance, we can pass along as an object, we can pass along a reference to the actual course objects. Right now, I don't remember if the course row was configured to be dynamic. It wasn't, right? It's always, notice that it's always returning course row, right? So instead, we can do a constructor here that can receive the properties and populate super properties. And now the properties can be used as a reference to any arguments that are passed in the attributes, right? We can use that properties. We can say this dot properties, and it was course, right? The name was course, was it? Course dot title is rendering that, and notice now it renders the titles of the courses. Right? But it looks like we have an exception here. Let's see what's complaining. What's this complaining about? Okay, so it's complaining that it's rendering these dynamically, right? But there's no way for the infrastructure to know that these are unique DOM elements. So it's suggesting that we add a key attribute to these course rows that we're generating dynamically, right? So let's use as a key. We'll use the course.id, and hopefully it'll stop complaining. All right. Okay. Excellent. It doesn't complain anymore. Everybody okay? All right. So we were able to generate the course rows. Right. Let's see where we go from here. Right, we configure the course row, we display the title of the course. All right, so the next thing we'd like to be able to do is have some kind of form that if we click on plus, we can add new courses, right, and send them over to the server, right, and re-render them as they're added to the server. So let's take a look at that next. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, like the video, and share it. Thanks.